So how can one single blog post just obliterate $30 billion of a company's value practically overnight? It sounds totally made up, right? But on February 23rd, 2026, it actually happened. We're going to break down exactly how one piece of AI software triggered one of the biggest panics in modern financial history.
So, picture this. This is the number that just flashed across trading screens everywhere. In one day, almost $30 billion in market value. Poof. Gone. Wiped from the books of one of the most legendary companies in the world, IBM.
And look, to be clear, this wasn't just a bad day at the office. This was a historic collapse, a 13.2% freefall. It was IBM's single worst trading day in over a quarter of a century. Something had seriously spooked Wall Street.
But here's the kicker. The cause wasn't a terrible earnings report or some failed product. The thing that set off this multi-billion-dollar firestorm was a single blog post from a tiny AI startup. So you have to be asking, what on earth did it say?
All right, so to really get what happened here, we've got to talk about the AI that lit the fuse. This wasn't just any old program. This thing was like a digital master key, designed to pick the locks on the oldest, rustiest vaults in the entire financial system.
The culprit, if you want to call it that, was a tool named Claude Code from the AI startup Anthropic. Its purpose sounds simple, but it was absolutely revolutionary: to automatically understand and translate COBOL, a programming language from the 1960s that, and I'm not kidding, still runs pretty much the entire world of finance.
You see, what this blog post did was promise to finally break what everyone in the industry calls the COBOL handcuffs. For decades, banks and financial institutions have been totally locked into using IBM's incredibly powerful and incredibly expensive mainframe computers. Why? Because all their most critical systems were written in this ancient code, and getting off of it was seen as just impossible.
And that right there, that's why Wall Street just lost its mind. Claude Code was a direct hit on IBM's mainframe Moat, the very thing that protected its massive revenue streams. If banks could suddenly rewrite their old COBOL code, they wouldn't need IBM's super expensive hardware anymore. They wouldn't need their high-margin software licenses, and they wouldn't need to pay for IBM's huge teams of consultants.
Okay, but to really feel the panic, you have to understand the problem this AI was solving. I mean, why in the world was the entire global financial system built on what was basically a technological ticking time bomb?
I mean, just look at this number. It's absolutely wild. COBOL is not some dusty relic in a museum. It is the invisible engine powering your life every single day. The vast majority of ATM withdrawals, credit card swipes, it's all running on COBOL, hidden just beneath the surface.
And here's what's so wild. This chart shows you the real bottleneck, the real reason nobody wanted to touch this stuff. For years, the biggest cost wasn't writing the new modern code. A whopping 75% of the cost was just figuring out what the heck the old code was even doing.
So you see the problem, right? The banks were totally stuck between a rock and a hard place. The people who actually wrote the code are all retired or gone. The cost to manually figure it all out was in the billions, and the risk of making even one tiny mistake, catastrophic. We're talking about crashing the global payment system. No pressure.
So Anthropic might have fired the shot that was heard round the world that day, but trust me, they are not the only ones in this game. The promise of finally unlocking finance from its legacy prison has kicked off a full-blown AI arms race among the biggest names in tech.
And this table, wow, it just lays it all out perfectly. You've got all the big players, and they're all coming at this from different angles. Anthropic is all about speed. AWS is using these AI agents that act like a whole team of developers. Microsoft is taking it piece by piece. Google is focused on being super safe and running two systems at once. And then you've got IBM, of course, fighting back with its own AI, trying to convince banks to modernize but stay on their mainframes.
And get this, it wasn't just IBM that got hammered. The shockwave ripped through the entire consulting industry. Companies like Accenture and Cognizant, whose whole business model is built on selling thousands and thousands of billable hours for people to manually analyze this old code, they saw their stocks tumble too. The age of just throwing armies of consultants at a problem was suddenly looking very, very fragile.
Okay, so all this talk about change, it brings up a massive question. Moving a bank off of COBOL is like trying to change the engine on a 747 while it's flying. It is incredibly risky. So how does AI actually make it safe?
Well, the first big risk is something called dark logic. Think about it. Critical business rules from like the 80s that were never written down anywhere.
They only exist in the code itself. Modern AI tackles this head-on. Before it touches anything, the AI scans everything, maps it all out, and generates plain English documentation. It literally brings that lost knowledge back from the dead.
Okay, risk number 2 is a bit more subtle. It's called semantic fidelity loss. Basically, the AI translates the code perfectly, but it misses the intent, like a weird rounding rule that's crucial for financial calculations. The solution for this is just genius. Dual run. You run the old system and the new AI-built system at the same time, processing the same data. Then, another AI acts like a watchdog, comparing every single result to make sure they match, down to the very last decimal point.
And all of this follows what has become the golden rule for this kind of project, the strangler fig pattern. You don't do a giant, risky, all-at-once switch. No way. Instead, you slowly and safely replace one tiny piece of the old system at a time, until the new system has completely and gently taken over, strangling the old one.
Okay, so that's the theory. But what's actually happening out there on the front lines? How are real banks actually pulling this off?
Take JP Chase. They are using something they call a multi-agent framework. It's pretty cool. It's basically a whole software team made up of different AIs. You have one AI that writes the new code, a second reviewer AI that checks it for bugs and security holes, and a third AI that tests it to make sure it meets all the business rules.
Then you've got HSBC, who teamed up with Google to do that zero-risk dual-run thing we just talked about. And the results? Not only did they make sure it was perfectly accurate, but they found out that some of their big data jobs ran a mind-blowing 18 times faster on the new cloud platform.
And this quote, this is from JP Morgan, just a few days before that big IBM crash, it tells you everything you need to know. When they say we are past the point of peak modernization, it means for them, the hardest part is already over. Thanks to AI, they're already on the other side of the mountain.
So, what this really shows us is that there's no one-size-fits-all answer here. JP Morgan is going full speed ahead with automation, HSBC is all about safety first, and Goldman Sachs is using AI as a superpowered tool for their human developers. Every bank is picking the AI strategy that fits their own comfort level with risk. So really, what Wall Street finally woke up to on February 23, 2026, is that the very foundation of modern finance, the code that built the last 50 years of our economy, is being torn down and rebuilt from scratch. The only real question left is, in this brand new era, who is going to own the operating system that runs all the world's money?